All right, there we go. Perfect. Should be live here. So, hey everybody, feel free to jump in the chat as well. We'll try to keep this, pretty interactive, but excited to welcome on our partner and friend here today, Matt Theriault. So, Matt, do you want to say hi to the people?
Hey, people. Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, man. I think, we've done probably 20, 25 of these so far, all, pre-recorded. Really excited to kind of experiment. And you're the one who suggested the live because you've, are you doing this pretty often on YouTube yourself?
No, I was actually, I was a guest on someone else that was doing it. And it was such a cool format. And I had asked why they didn't record them like we do a podcast or not. And they said that the YouTube algorithm is very favorable or in favor of the live streams that aren't gamers. So apparently if you don't have a gaming channel, they're going to give you a little extra push. So that's why I just say, hey, let's do it and see if we reach more people.
Why not? Yeah.
Let's put it to the test.
Yeah. And I love, actually, Elise already jumped in. Congratulations, Elise and team. We actually today hit 10,000 subscribers. So,
congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, she's doing awesome work there. So, Elise, Benji, everybody over there, Ty.
You guys deserve it for sure. You got a good product and good content and good guests. So,
thank you. Yeah, really good guest, right?
Fantastic guest, yes.
There we go.
I don't know why I was number 25, but oh well.
hey, we're getting our feet out from under us, and then
you guys need to warm up, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Very good.
Awesome. Well, again, very excited to welcome on Matt today. I'm other Matt, the host of our Thought Leader Spotlight series, our head of partnerships here at DealMachine. Welcome to this special live edition. Again, we're going to try to make this interactive in the chat. So feel free, Nikki, Keith, that's great. Elise, thanks for throwing comments in there. But, today we're going to welcome on, I'll give the stage to Matt Theriault today. For these in general, we really try to shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself and, hear inspiring stories from you and educate our audience on, the lessons you've learned and really, the trends you see in the market today. Today we're going to dive into the housing market, your thoughts there, how to find deals, how to negotiate, a variety of things around those subjects. Sure. But to kind of begin, Matt, do you mind giving our audience some context here and maybe talking, a little bit more about yourself and your journey and, the things that happened along the way that have got you to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I spent the next 15 years or so of my life in the music business. And I did really well, had a small little hip hop record label. We had major label distribution, global distribution. I just had a blast and just was like, nothing could go wrong. Life was treating me well. And it was really interesting because, I'm in this world of entrepreneurship now. And I guess I was then as well, but I didn't classify it as an entrepreneur. But you're supposed to have a morning ritual. You're supposed to set goals. You're supposed to have, these habits and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't have any of that. It just came so natural. And it was such a great place to be. But every once in a while, life can come along and just kick you in the teeth. And this thing called the digital download did exactly that. And it just changed the way that people consumed music. And it essentially, in like 6 short months, it put me out of business. And we had no idea what was going on. I mean, in hindsight, it was crystal clear what happened. But at the time when it was happening, I mean, the internet was still new. Not even every record label even had a website at the time.
Wait, what year was that even?
That was 2000. Let's see. Yeah, about 2000.
Okay. Yeah, so right around, that makes sense. Yeah.
But for a company to get a website, I mean, it was still like a $5,000, $10,000 endeavor, and you had to hire someone to do it for you and everything like that. And I was like, well, I just have this website. What good is it going to do me? But I mean, no one's going to buy anything on a website, right? And so,
so fun. Yeah,
it's funny. I mean, it's just like in hindsight, all those different things that we just thought were going to be scams or fads or trends, and they just all stuck. Yeah. And anyway. In 6 short months, I mean, I was out of business along with about 50,000 other music industry entrepreneurs and employees. And we were all hit the streets looking for jobs. And I filed applications for everything and very quickly found that I wasn't qualified for anything, not in the real world, because, I was just a music guy and that's all I really knew how to do. And so I had to eat, though. So I ended up bagging groceries. And then the wife didn't really appreciate that so she left, and then she left me with all of her debt. So then I had to file bankruptcy, and And so at the age of 34, I was literally, I mean, I went from a 7-figure year just the previous year to working for $7 an hour. Wow. And I was like, wow, how'd I get here? This wasn't the plan. And so I was there for about 6 months before I woke up. It was a really big pity party. I was blaming everybody and everything on my current circumstances, my situation, until I just kind of realized, wow, if I don't do something, no one's coming to save me. I better, figure it out. So I knew I had to learn something new, and I wanted to learn something that had as equal or maybe even a greater income potential as what I was doing in the music business. And the most unlikely mentor of all people was the grocery store manager. And he said, Matt, if you want your money back, real estate, that's the final frontier where the average person's got a shot at making any sort of wealth. And I was like, well, okay, if it's the final frontier, and I was feeling far below average at the time, I decided to take him up on it. And he showed me what he had done. And I was like, okay, well, that's good enough for me because nothing else was panning out. So I did what I thought the logical thing to do was, and the next day I was enrolled in a real estate agent school to get my real estate license. And I did that for a few years, and then eventually realized, wow, if real estate's where all the money's at, it's really sitting on the other side of the desk, because I was seeing what my clients were doing as opposed to what I was earning. And so I made this decision that one day I'm no longer going to represent other people in their transactions. I'm going to represent myself. I'm going to be the principal. I'll be buyer. I'll be seller. And I made a huge investment in my own education to become an investor. And thank goodness I found a good program right in the beginning, and I just did what they told me to do. And here we are. That's probably now 12, 13 years ago.
Wow. And
we have this thing called Epic Real Estate.
Yeah. Man,
yep.
That's quite a journey. I mean, do you think, I know you mentioned your background was in hip hop to begin with. Do you see many parallels between hip hop and real estate in terms of the lessons you learned or the things that you were doing in that job and how that translates?
Good question. I would say that the things that I've learned is not trying to kind of give up being fancy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And giving up, I think the big lesson was giving up the romanticism. Actually, Gary Vee talks about this a lot. People get really romantic about the way they used to do business. And I've had to learn that lesson 2 or 3 times the hard way. And so now as I move forward, and I be careful, I'm cautious of the shiny objects and stuff, but I'm really open right now to anything that may be some sort of new innovation. And I see that next thing right now, and I know it's a topic, it's really popular, but I've been doing this about 3 years. It's just the cryptocurrency. People are just kind of pushing away. It's never going to work, and they're going to outlaw it. And they're like, man, they had all those same conversations with the digital download in music, right? And they had the same conversations with the internet, and Facebook was the same way, and Instagram was the same way. And I'm just like, I've given all that up and just kind of being open to that. The world is changing. And I think the biggest risk today, because the world is changing so quickly, the biggest risk is not taking any risks. Now you want to take calculated and educated risks, but you have to adapt and evolve with what the world is doing, because it's moving really quickly right now.
Yeah, that's an awesome mindset of you're more of a risk if you're not taking any risks. Like you're not giving yourself a chance to succeed. Then
Yep.
So, yeah. Do you actually? I mean, I saw on your channel, because it's is it Epic Investing on YouTube? You can plug that a little.
It's Epic Real Estate. There's the little domain right next to my name. I got a cool little vanity name.
Perfect.
So if you type in epicrei.tv, you don't need a .net, you don't need a .com. I thought that was really cool, but I have to explain that every time I give it out. So, but that'll take me right to our channel.
There we go. Yeah, you put out great stuff on there. I saw. I think it was this week you had one about like NFTs and virtual real estate and that whole world. So yeah, could you maybe give people the quick download on that too? Just since you brought up what's coming.
Sure. It wasn't really about cryptocurrency, or it was just more about there's a new real estate market that's emerging, and it's a real estate market that exists in this virtual world. And my son plays the game Roblox, and he probably asks me for $10 a week for a while for this free game to buy stuff inside the game, right? He buying clothes and equipment and tools and building resources. He bought a plane, and just so his virtual character has these little comforts and this stuff to use. And so I kind of got it because I've had that experience with him for a couple of years now. But right now there's new games coming out. What's the one? I forget the name. By Gala Games. Epic Gaming or something like that. No affiliation to Epic Gaming.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But it's Gala Games, but they have like their own coin, Gala, Gala. It's a cryptocurrency, and you can buy their coin, and you can buy the actual real estate inside of the game. So the game hasn't even been released yet, and someone just paid $1.6 million for the castle that exists in the game. And so the virtual real estate is going to work very much like our real world real estate works. When people come in, and if they want to come in and rent a room, they can rent a room from you, or they can throw a party there, or, they can rent its use or whatever they have to do to carry on their missions. And I was just totally fascinated. So there's a $1.6 million thing. Someone just bought 9 plots of land in this Axie Infinity game for $1.5 million. This New World artist, I don't know if that's the proper expression or proper title for her, but she just built a $500,000 virtual house. So you can take her little virtual house, and her character can move it from game to game to where they can live in it.
Yeah.
And it's just remarkable. And so it kind of blows me away that people are spending that type of money. But what I'm really starting to understand is how important people's identity is to them inside of these games. Like their status symbols. This is a way of life. People spend endless and countless time on there. And there's a, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a fund on Wall Street that is going to be based around virtual real estate, where they'll go into these games, buy these plots of land, build them up, and then resell them. And, minimum to get into that fund is $25,000. So it's just kind of something I'm thinking about, like, wow, this is something I would have thought was crazy a while back, but I've learned that lesson the hard way so many times. I'm like, well, let's at least talk about it and understand what it is. So that's this virtual real estate now, selling for real world money.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there are probably people on here right now listening to this and just thinking like, wow, that's like such a wild out there idea. But I think you're right, that having been through that journey of seeing just everything become digital and the experience you had within the music industry itself, like I think that just reflects on you saying, hey, I need to have an open mind on opportunities. And I threw up the comment there of you saying, hey, the biggest risk is not taking a risk, like be open to opportunities. So yeah. I'm with you. And
shout out to Jessica.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you, Jessa. Feel free to anybody, if they want to throw in the chat here as well, we'll pull people, pull people up and kind of answer Q&A to keep this, somewhat casual throughout it. But, you talking about kind of just the virtual world and kind of trends you've seen over the years. That leads me to kind of ask a little bit more about just the housing market in general, because it's a topic that you see so many people talking about right now and putting out content on, and you did a great video on it. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? And I know you mentioned like you have some pretty compelling stats that you quoted in your video. Like, walk us through how you see things evolving and what your opinion is on the state right now.
I just got back from a 10-day spring break vacation, so my mind is not fresh.
I don't expect you to quote everything.
Okay, but I'm going to speak generally, but I'm not going to tell any lies either. So there's a lot of people predicting a crash, right? And there's a lot of people thinking that's going to happen. They think the bottom's just going to fall out of it. And if you look at the historical real estate cycles, we were well overdue for an adjustment before COVID even. We were about 2 or 3 years behind schedule is when we should have had some sort of price adjustment. And then when we went into lockdown, we all kind of felt like, all right, so this is it. This is what's going to kick it off. And I was all about on my podcast. I was on the YouTube channel. I was with all my coaching clients and everything. I say, get ready. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go into creative real estate investing strategies, because this is how I built my business and how I built my wealth and my portfolio. And that opportunity is coming up again. And we all got raring and ready to go. And I got everybody trained up and educated. That's all we talked about for a few months. And that collapse, it never happened. It just kept on appreciating and appreciating and appreciating. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One were the low interest rates, historically low. Those have been ticking up gradually, though, since the early January. So we want to keep our eye on those. Then we have the eviction moratorium and the loan forbearance programs. So people were, the market was falsely supported by something like that. And so there's those things that are supporting it. But now the prediction is, okay, so those things, we're just kicking that can down the road. And eventually what's the expression? The chickens are coming home to roost. I don't live on a farm. I think that's how it goes. All right. But we're going to have to pay the piper at some point. And I'm looking at everything, and people are saying it's going to be 2007 all over again. And I was like, no, it absolutely is not going to be. And if you look at 2007, first of all, what caused that huge collapse? First, you got to realize that's a once in a lifetime type of adjustment. Nothing had happened like that since the Great Depression. So statistically, it just can't happen. But more importantly is the reason that bubble was built in 2005, 6, and 7 was because we made it so easy for anyone to buy a home, right? That's what really fueled that whole thing. Anybody could buy a home. We got them in with a nice low introductory rate. And then when those rates started to adjust, people bought more home than they should have and couldn't afford it. So that's what caused that. So after that, there's all types of new regulation came into play, and the banks, I mean, so many banks were on the verge of collapse, and a couple of them disappeared. I mean, Lehman Brothers is like a household name, been around for 100 years, totally vanished, right? Gone. And so the banking industry was going to making sure that that's not going to happen again. And so they got their bailout from the government, and think of what you want to think about that, but it happened, and that's what's so. But ever since then, their guidelines for loans has been probably tighter and more strict than they've ever been. So this last 11, 12, 13 years, the banks have written their best book of business probably in the history of banking. So it's all grade A paper. So there's not a whole lot, there's not that environment for the possibility of defaults right now.
Right.
So whatever caused 2007, that situation, those circumstances don't exist now. So that's the first thing. Second thing is people are saying, well, what about all the forbearance programs? And so if you follow the little chart of the forbearance program, it's at the Mortgage Bankers Association website. You can see like in March, there's this huge spike and all these loan programs go delinquent, right? All these mortgages go delinquent because people had the option to not pay. So they just took it. And then, but if you watch as that goes along and it trickles down and trickles down, as the economy starts to open up. So as people go back to work, guess what? They started making their payments again. And then there's also a stat I just read this morning that there's people that are starting to make their payments and their loan forbearance hasn't even expired yet. And then there was a certain number of people that made their, they took on the forbearance program. But if you read into the details of what it takes to qualify for that, you don't have to prove anything. You know, for the eviction moratorium, a tenant has to prove that they've been displaced because of the pandemic. They've been displaced out of their work because of the pandemic. Right. For the mortgage forbearance, you don't have to prove anything. You just have to claim it and ask for it. So they're saying a good 30% of those people took the government up on that offer, didn't even need to. So then you look at that. So the forbearance program or the mortgages that are delinquent aren't nearly what they look like. And as we just keep adding jobs, we've had 3 successful employment or unemployment numbers that have come out 3 months in a row. People are going back to work. Those mortgages are falling. And then the other part of it is that's different now than it was in 2007 is people have equity. I think the national average over the last 12 months, homes have appreciated, like the median is appreciated by, I think, 22%, I think is the number. And if you look into some other parts, like in California, there's some places that have appreciated 50%. Crazy. Like, it's just ridiculous. So people have equity. And when you have equity, you have options. So their worst case scenario for someone that is out of work and can't afford their payments and can't make up for the loan forbearance, they get to sell their profit, pay it off, or sell their property, make a profit, pay it off, and go rent a house. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. And so there's that. And then if you look at historically how low the inventory is, it's never been this low ever. Those foreclosures are going to be gobbled up just like this, just like that. There won't even be enough foreclosures for those that are outside, or the exceptions to what I just explained, to even bring us back up to a normal market. That's how much demand there is out there and how low we are in inventory. So that's a real issue as well. And new home builders, they haven't been able to rise to the occasion because of the cost of lumber has tripled. And not even now, it's not even a cost thing. It's just an availability of supplies. There's a huge shortage on what they call flat steel. And that's what they use to create the concrete foundations to build houses on. So if you don't have a foundation, you don't have a house. So it doesn't matter how much money you have if there's no steel, specific flat steel around. So it eventually will adjust. I'm not saying it's never going to, but it's not happening this year. It's not happening this year. And I bet we go well into 2022 before we see any real adjustment. The only real caveat, the only real thing that we'd have to watch are interest rates. That's the only thing I think that can really slow it down at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, do you, with all that in mind, in such a hot market, I mean, we'll get into how to find deals, because that's, clearly, like you said, inventory is an all-time low. Like that's clearly a big thing that you're probably asked about all the time. But how do you recommend for new real estate investors? They're looking at this hot market. They're looking at videos saying, is a crash coming or not?
Mm-hmm.
Like how should newbies really focus on getting into the market, and how do they have the right mindset even to do that?
Good question. So first of all, anything you hear about the real estate market, say on the news or at a dinner party or even YouTube, keep in mind that is all retail data. When I talk about mortgage rates, I talk about forbearance programs, and I talk about inventory levels. That's all retail data. As real estate investors, we don't play in the retail side of things. We can when the market shifts. There's going to be some great opportunities there. But in a market like this, when it's such a strong seller's market on the retail side, those opportunities are few and far between. So you got to play off market, right? So you got to find the deals off market. So what causes those deals? Because people are still finding deals. Real estate agents, they look for the deals off market. So we just have to look at the same place that they do, and that's dealing directly with private sellers. And so most people aren't going to sell their house at a discount, right? Most of them, and particularly anyone that has any clue as to what the supply and demand element is out there right now, won't. But there is a portion of the population that's going to need to sell. So as we talk about all these different things that have happened during the pandemic, us as real estate investors, without a pandemic, we'll look for signs of distress. We'll look for personal distress and property distress. We'll look for financial distress. We'll look for all of these different types of distress that are falling upon homeowners. Because as I mentioned right when we began, life kicks everybody in the teeth every now and then. Mm-hmm. And people that own homes will have to turn to their homes for some sort of financial relief to get them out of their issue. They've got bigger fish to fry going on at the moment right now, more so than trying to go through a traditional sale of their house and getting full price for it. So those are who we look for.
Yep. Do you, with that, obviously we talk about driving for dollars as a way to identify a lot of those leads or list building a little bit as well. But can you kind of talk through strategies that you teach newbies or even advanced investors around how they can start to find those deals and build that list?
Sure. So you said the word list, right?
Yeah.
So you can go and pull lists of people that are under different types of distress. Right? You can pull a divorce list. You can pull a probate list. You can pull a delinquency list. You can pull a liens list, vacant house list, all these different types of lists, right? And so you look for those lists and then you market to them. And there's a lot of different ways that you can reach out to them. Basically, you can pick up the phone and call them. You can send them a ringless voicemail these days via a broadcast. Texting is super popular. If you've got the budget for it, direct mail is probably still the most effective way to reach out to those people. And what we teach here, we teach all of those, but what we teach here at Epic is coordinating all of those into a campaign. So you're hitting each seller, you're hitting each seller in the way that they want to be communicated to, right? Because I could send out 1,000 postcards to 1,000 people, and there's a certain number of those people that are going to respond to a postcard, and everyone else is going to throw them in the trash. And then I can send out a text message to those same 1,000 people. And there's a lot of them that are going to respond to the text message and the rest of them are going to ignore it. But it probably won't be the same people. And then you do the same thing with the ringless voicemail. You can do it with email, and you can do it with just flat out cold calling. So we try to coordinate those as a campaign and time those strategically apart. So we're hitting one list from multiple angles over a certain period of time.
Yeah, because I know you've talked about like one of the biggest mistakes you see is people just giving up too early. Like the fact that it takes, 5 to 12, plus touch points to really, get on someone's radar and get to that close, right?
Yeah. So if you're looking to get into real estate, I'm going to give this a try just to see if this works. Don't get into it. Don't even try. If you're not going to commit to at least 12 months and playing all out, then I would say you shouldn't even try. Go find something else to do. Because it's not easy, but if you're looking for proof of that it works, it works. What you're looking for is proof if you work, right? So it's really all internal. I mean, real estate's produced more wealth than anything else, even more than cryptocurrency, even more than Amazon, running an Amazon shop, whatever it may be. Real estate has produced more wealth for more people than anything else. So we know
around a while. Yeah.
So we know it works. So this isn't just, I'm going to go test to see if it works. No, you're going to test to see if you work. We already know that if you do the right activities, you do those consistently, and you do them with persistence, you can't fail. It has to. You have to get the results. Now, everybody gets results at different speeds and different rates because they come from different backgrounds and different experience levels and have different resources available to them. But if you do the activities, everybody gets the results.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's a numbers game. Like, it's something where, like you said, you're going to need to really commit yourself, like ideally a full year, like you said. But being able to come in, and even on our side, like on the DealMachine side, for our DealMachine members, our average member, I mean, it's taking them, about 300 or so leads where you market to them a handful of times each. And we have some people who, they've reached out to 5 leads and gotten a deal. That happens. We have some people where it takes more than that, more than 300, but it is a numbers game where you need to set yourself up to fill that pipeline consistently and put yourself out there with enough marketing touch points in front of enough qualified leads. And that's where consistent success is going to come from. So
perfect. And it's just like if you have a job, you go to the job consistently every day.
Or working out.
Or else you get fired, right? And you go to your job every day and you have a certain set of responsibilities that you have to perform every single day. And you do that Monday through Friday, week after week after week, and you do it for years. Like, you never get to stop doing that. And I think when people come into real estate, they forget that, wow, I was just doing this for wherever they just came from. If I've been working this job for 3 years, doing it for somebody else, you just have to bring that same mindset. Now I'm going to do it for me. It's fun to be your own boss. It's great. It's empowering, and there's a lot of freedom there. But people don't realize that you have to be your own employee too for a little while.
Yep. Yeah.
And you need that consistency. Yep.
Yeah. Do you, I know you said, hey, it's, it's about, will you work for real? Like, real estate itself works, but will you fit real estate? I think one interesting thing you've told me in the past too is that, if your leads are terrible, it's because maybe you don't know how to talk to the seller, right? And so that's where you're saying, hey, maybe that's a me problem. Do I work? Like, where do you see investors kind of, messing that up or going off the rails there?
Okay, I'm going to switch over my little camera here, see if I can.
Yeah.
I have a hard time speaking without being able to draw.
There we go. Nice. Love it.
Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. I'm still a little old school, but we're a little new school too. All right. So if we look at here's the thing. If you look at all of the potential people you could talk to, right? All the houses that are going to be for sale. I look at it like this. We've got 95% of all the people that want to sell their house are up here. And then we got 5% down here. These people want to sell. These people need to sell. Okay. So if you look at just this, you're going to have to talk to a lot of people that want to sell, but most likely are not going to be very interested in selling to you at a discount because they don't have to. And when you look at that, it's like you can't say the right thing to the wrong person. They're not going to sell your house at a discount, no, regardless of how good of a negotiator you are, how nice of a personality you have, or what cool system you got that lead from, or what list you got it off of. But down here, these people that need to sell, these people that are in that distress, it's really difficult to say the wrong thing to the right person. Okay, so that's the first part of when you're talking to your leads. Realize that most people that you talk to, if you generate 100 leads, they could be 100 of the best leads from DealMachine. 95 of those people are not going to sell you their house. They're just not going to, not at the discount that's going to make sense for you. But 5% will. Okay, they'll at least be open to it and will give you a good, strong consideration. So, but this down here, this is where all the competition is. It's all down here. Okay, so this is where anybody, like, if you can, if you speak English and you have a reasonable amount of sense to you, you don't have to be an expert or super smart or anything. You can close these deals down here. We call this the low-hanging fruit, right? Mm-hmm. Up here, I don't care how good you are, you most likely aren't going to get a deal. So what we work on here at Epic is how do we start talking to sellers to where we can kind of cover this area as well. because there's a lot of opportunity where these two areas kind of overlap. And the better that you get when we start doing creative real estate strategies, creative financing, you can start venturing in a little bit more and get a little bit deeper and create a little bit bigger piece of the pie for yourself. And this is what, if you think your market is saturated, you think there's a lot of competition in your market, it's because they're all playing down here and they're all playing for the same person, but there's very, very little competition up here. And so what's also very exciting about it is the better that you get up here, these deals you're already going to get, you're going to get deeper discounts there. Mm-hmm. So this is a big portion of just like setting your expectations appropriately when you go in and start talking to, you start fielding leads and you're talking to sellers, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first part, just having your mindset right. Now, when you, I have something I created called the Conversion Quadrant.
I love this.
You've seen my trick here before?
It is great. Yeah.
So this is the Conversion Quadrant. And this is why most people get frustrated with their leads, is because they don't really know how to talk to the seller. They essentially go in, be playing, it's me versus the seller. And I'm going to go and talk to this seller and get this property negotiated as low as I possibly can. So they go in playing what I call the bad cop, right? They're going in an adversarial role. And when they present that offer to the seller, they present it as their idea. This is what I'm going to pay. So it's the buyer's idea. The offer is the buyer's idea. And what happens in this area is you get a lot of resistance. And you get a lot of resistance from seller because it's you versus them. And essentially, more times than not, you end up with no deal. Now, this is where most people operate from, whether they've been doing this a long time or they're brand new. You can still make money down here, but the problem is you need a whole lot of leads. You need to spend a whole lot of marketing for this strategy to work. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then the next portion of the area where most people will play is up here, because it might be their very first deal or they haven't had a deal in a while. And the offer ends up being the seller's idea, right? So the offer is the seller's idea. So you talk to so many of these people, you didn't get a deal, and then you start talking to somebody, and this seller's at least polite to you, will at least talk to you, but he's going to dictate, this is how much I'll sell it to you for. And you're just so excited that you got a seller to say yes, that's actually going to sign your contract. Then you enter and you get a deal up here, or you get at least a signed contract. Mm-hmm. But actually, what you have is from the seller, your relationship with the seller is that seller's the boss. They're calling the shots. They told you this is what I'm going to sign it for. And you were just so excited to get that contract signed that you took it. But this can be, your transactions get to be a real struggle here. This is where you end up canceling a lot of contracts. This is where you fall into this trap where you think you need a big buyer's list because no one wants your deals. And what's really happening here is you don't have the deal you think you have. When you think you need a big buyer's list, you're actually just looking for, I need a bigger sucker than me to buy this deal off of me, right? And so that can be a really tough place to play. But where this can work, and it probably is working for a lot of people right now, is in a fast appreciating market. When the supply is really low and the demand is really high, you can do deals up there. But I'm telling you, if this is the area that you're playing in right now, when this market shifts, you're going to be getting the first contracts. It's going to be the first thing to go. Okay. So now what we teach over here at Epic, we teach you to be the good cop, meaning align yourself with the seller. The seller called you because they have a problem and you're the problem solver. So you come in and you're going to interview this seller to see if I can solve your problem. And you're going to make the market the bad guy. Because at the end of the day, the market is what determines value. You don't determine value. The seller doesn't determine the value. A real estate agent doesn't determine the value. The bank doesn't determine the value. The appraiser doesn't determine the value. The market does. A house is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. So the mindset is that we're going to go ahead and, as long as the market, Mr. Seller, will both give us what we want, then we can put a deal together. And these people are in distress. I mean, they're just going through a divorce, or maybe they just lost their job. They just had someone pass away, whatever it may be. They need help. And that's who we should be. And that's a really good place to operate from. It feels good. And you can make a lot of money over here. And so a lot of people that come in to our program in the beginning, they like the way this feels. Oh, this is good. I get to help people and I get to make a lot of money doing it. But what they lack when they come in is the skill on how to be the good cop and have the seller think it's their idea. And so they're still kind of talking like, this is what I can give you. And what happens here is you're in relationship with the seller, you get a lot of doubt. You get a lot of questions. The seller might like you. They can sense that you're on their side. They can sense you're a good person. They sense you're there to help. But because the offer was your idea, they're still not quite sure. And are you sure, Matt, that this is going to be the good deal? Are you sure the market can't give us more? I mean, I like you and you seem like a good guy, but I don't know. So you get a lot of those types of conversations and very slow transactions. But when you can come up here and you can position yourself as the good cop, the market is the bad cop, and get the seller to come up with the idea of what their offer should be. And this is what this would kind of sound like, is after your initial interview with the seller, it's okay, Mr. Seller. Well, based off of what the market is saying, the bad cop, and then after what you shared with me about the conditions, and then carving out a small little profit for myself, what you're saying is we're right around $75,000. Is that right? So I said, what you're saying is we're right around $75,000, but it's all based off of the market, what they told me about the conditions. Then after carving out a small little profit for myself, what you're saying is there. And so that's kind of what that whole conversation goes. And there's a whole sequence to what that dialogue looks like, but that's the gist of it. And what you get are cooperative sellers, and you get easy transactions. They go nice and easy. So this is where we like to play, and it's a good place to play. You get to start playing when you're up in this quadrant. You're up, you start moving up in
That's
here.
How you unlock that.
Deeper, right? And then you start arming yourself with some creative financing strategies and some creative solutions. And all of a sudden you can get really deep and turn a whole lot more into a deal. Right. So that's how it works. And so when people complain about their leads, I need a new way to get leads. What's my best source of leads? Should I drive for dollars? Should I do direct mail? Should I do texting or ringless voicemail or pay per click or whatever it may be? The answer is yes, but you should get some skill behind you and understand how to talk to the seller first. And I would say practice it. We do a lot of practicing here.
A lot of role play. Yeah.
It is a skill. It's a skill that can be developed just like any other.
Yep.
If you golf, you go to the driving range a whole lot, right? This is just like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about was how to are there some fundamentals you can teach our audience around how to position, how to be that good cop, how to problem solve, how to ask the right questions, how to build that relationship?
Yeah, let me see. Right, I just don't have it in front of me. Sorry, I just got back from the dentist and was trying to get back here as fast as I could. We have something called the 9-point seller interview. Oh, here it is. I got it. There's something called the 9-point seller interview. And and it's just that, it's an interview, and it looks like this. It's a framework. Okay. So there's like 9 boxes that we check off, and I'll go through them here. Actually, I don't know. Should I write them down or just relay them? Okay. I'll go through them slowly. But first of all, it's a 9-point seller interview. And I don't really like scripts too much because you could know your script forwards and backwards and be really good at it. But if the seller doesn't know their script, it's going to throw you off. So we like to work in frameworks, and we just try to check these 9 boxes as we're going through this. And the first one is to just set the stage. So the seller is calling you, and you have to keep in mind, they're the ones with the problem. The whole intent of this idea or this interview is the seller, their job is to convince you to buy their house. It's not your job to convince them to sell you their house. That's what a real estate agent does. That's what listing agents do. Mm-hmm. I'm going to convince you that my marketing is the best, and you're going to let me list your house for you. This is a totally different dynamic. This person is calling you with some sort of distress, a high level of motivation, and there's a reason they're not calling a real estate agent, because they don't want to work with a real estate agent, or they don't think it's going to be a fast enough process. They need something quick and fast. They got a problem. So you being the good cop, you want to be the problem solver. So you got to find out what the problem is first. whether it's the cop that knocks on your door and starts asking you questions about the disturbance call they just got, or if you go to the doctor and they start asking you about where it hurts, right? They go down their little checklist. And I got to see what we're even dealing with here so I know what solution to even provide, if I can even provide one. Because we can't buy them all. And that's perfectly okay. You shouldn't buy them all. If you're buying them all, you're paying way too much for real estate. So I kind of think like 1 out of 7, 1 out of 10 at the most. But if you're buying like, every other property, you're probably paying too much. But anyway, just because a seller is willing to sell you their house doesn't mean you have to buy it. Okay. So we set the stage. They call and say, hey, they say something like, I just got this postcard in the mail. What's this all about? I say, great. Okay. So yeah, most people that do call us, they do want to know what this is all about and how much they can get for their house. Do you have those same type of questions? And so you have to take control right away. The person asking the questions is the person that's in charge. If you find yourself talking to leads and you're answering all the questions, you are not in control. You have to be asking the questions yourself. It's an interview. You are interviewing them. They are not interviewing you. You are not a service provider. You're a buyer. You're a shopper. You're an investor. Your job is to make money. Okay. So keep that in mind. And you got to be reluctant with it. Like, I'm the reluctant buyer. I don't know if I can buy your house. I'm going to have to ask you some questions. Do you have some time to answer them for me right now? Perfect. Okay. So may I have your full name and property address, please? What's the best phone number for you? Where would you like us to email our contact information? So just kind of get their contact information, because you're going to need to follow up. Most of your deals aren't going to happen on this first phone call. They're all going to happen in the follow-up. So make sure you grab all that information up front. 3, you just want to start asking about the property. But most people will ask, okay, so how many square foot does it have? What's the bedroom bath count? What's the yard like? Something like that. And those are all basic questions you can find on the internet. And those questions aren't going to help you in this moment. Your job is to build rapport and find out if this is a prospect or a suspect. Do they want to sell? Do they need to sell? And then if you can actually help them or not. Okay, so you want to know with the general condition of the house. So what type of condition is it in? Am I going to have to do any repairs? And you're going to find a lot of sellers will say, no, my house is in great condition. It's perfect. I had it rehabbed, or I had it totally remodeled 15 years ago. It's perfect. Right. And so you'll go through those types of experiences. And if you get that type of thing, say, okay, great. I'm sure your house is very beautiful. I can't wait to see it. But if you were going to stay there another 10 years, what would you fix first? And so you have to kind of extract. Remember, you're being the good cop, right? You're not in any sort of desperate mode of trying to buy their house. You want to know if anyone's living in the property at the moment. You want to know what it would rent for. And then you give them the opportunity. Is there anything else you think I should know about the property? So you're just asking questions, just pulling information from them. This is not the time to flex your knowledge and your experience and how much you know about it. It's not the time for you to agree or disagree with what they say, because you don't know anything. You're just asking questions. You're just gathering information. Because if we're going to make this offer the seller's idea, this is all the information we're using, so they know it's their idea, because it's based off of what you shared with me. What you're saying is this, right? So it's what they're sharing. So you have to let them share. Next one, number 4, you got to find out what's the motive. What's the motive? So I like to say, this sounds like a property that might work for us. Can I ask though, why are you selling it? You got to ask the why. The foundation of every real deal lies within the seller's motivation to sell. If you can't get to the why, you're going to have a tough time getting to the discount. You got to get to the why. And a lot of times this might be a little too early in the conversation for them to reveal all to you. So you have to keep on asking. And so I ask, how long have you been thinking about selling it? And then the one question that most people are a little bit afraid to ask, and I think it's become more common now because more people have kind of figured this out, but asking the question, have you considered calling a realtor? Right? This sounds like a really nice house. You could probably get a good lot of money for it. The market's really hot. The inventory's low. Why don't you just call a real estate agent? And you want to do that because that's going to reveal their true motivation, probably more than why are you selling it? Say, no, I don't like real estate agents, or no, I need this fast. No, I don't want to hold open house. I don't want to wait for marketing. I don't want to wait for a loan contingency. They're going to tell you all different types of things, but you want them to tell you that. You don't want to make that assumption, and you don't want to be afraid that they're going to be like, oh yeah, real estate agent. I never thought of that. Okay, thanks for the help. Bye. That never happens. Okay. But you're pushing them back a little bit. So they pull you in more, like, oh, no, don't go anywhere. I want you to buy my house. I don't want to work with a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they're trying to convince you to buy it. You're not trying to convince them to sell it. Next is encumbrances. So is there anything attached to the property? There are any loans, liens, or judgments like that? But sometimes that can be a little bit of an intrusive or an invasive question, especially this early in the relationship that you're having with the seller. So I always like to ask, well, if I choose to buy your house, will I have to pay off any mortgages or liens or anything like that? So by asking, am I going to have to pay anything off? And then they'll go ahead and they'll be a little bit more revealing as to what's going on with the property financially. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now this next one, number 6, this is getting to the property's value. And a lot of people will mess this one up, and you can mess up a lot right here in this point here. So what I'll say is, I'm going to go ahead and check the current market conditions as it pertains to the value of your house. But do you have an idea as to what houses like yours are selling for? Those are really key words, because what you're doing right now is you're positioning the market as the bad guy. Do you have any idea of what houses like yours are selling for? Most people say, what do you think your house is worth? Don't ask that question, because now they'll always say more. The sellers always think it's up here, and the buyers always think it's down here. Always.
Yeah, subjective then. Yeah.
Right. So do you have an idea of what houses like yours are selling for? The next question is, they say $100,000. Yeah, the house across the street sold for $100,000. Great. So what's the lowest price you would accept? People get afraid to ask that question, but they'll go ahead and they'll answer it, and they might say $100,000, or they'll say, I would take $90,000 for it if we could do this quickly. Great. And one more time, is this at all negotiable? Because right now, whatever's coming out of their mouth is the seller's idea of what that offer is going to be. They're saying it. They told you the condition. They told you why they haven't called a real estate agent. They said, this is what the houses across the street is selling for. This is the lowest I would take, but it might be negotiable. So now that's your new starting point. So every time you ask those questions, you're getting a lower starting point, and it's all the seller doing it. It's not you being the bad guy giving you your opinion of the value. Okay. So number 7, this one's really important. Checking in, the problem check-in, I call it. So if there's a great book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. Big book. I think it's habit number 4. I'm not sure. Can't remember. But it's first seek to understand before being understood. And what this does is if any type of rapport or bonding that hasn't been built yet, it starts to really come together here, because it really shows that you are listening. And you're very different than probably the last 5 investors they just talked to that were trying to grind them down and get the cheapest house as cheap as possible. So you're saying, so what we like to do is just kind of repeat everything we have up to this point, and then ask, so did I miss anything? And give them the opportunity to speak. But what you're going to do is like, okay, so I got it. The house is empty. You don't want to deal with a real estate agent because you just lost your job, and you got to get back home the other side of the country because there's a new job waiting for you there. We've got about $50,000 on the mortgage to pay off. The house across the street selling for $100,000. You might take 90. That might be negotiable under the right circumstances. So did I get everything? Did I miss anything? So you just kind of repeat everything, all the answers you just got. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge bonding moment between you and the seller. Because who's the most important person in the world to any person? Themselves, right? They want to be listened to. So you're dealing with a real person that's going through some sort of issue right now. They typically aren't showing up and meeting you for the first time on a winning streak, right? Things are going good in their life. They're looking for someone that can help them. They're might be a little bit distrustful in nature just because of the condition that they're in. They're really hoping this is going to be the right thing. And all they got was this funky little, they got a funky little pink letter in the mail. And they're like, oh my gosh, I hope this is my saving grace. They're banking on that being their solution.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, like for you to say, like, come into that conversation with the right mindset that you're there to help them. Like, you're there to genuinely listen and solve their problem and help them in a situation that they need help in. So,
right.
I think coming in with that intention is going to immediately, just feel better for you, and also set you apart from many others.
100%. But if they don't believe it, it doesn't matter what your intention is. So that's why these questions are so important, because this person's really listening to me. I do believe them. Right. Mm-hmm. So then next, number 8 is to getting the seller's expectations. So after they've told you, nope, I think you got everything. Great. So what would you like to have happen? And then just be quiet. You got to stop and wait for that answer. You have to have them tell you what they want you to do. And here's the reason. A a lot of investors, new and experienced alike, will go in thinking that every seller wants money for their house. And when you go in thinking every seller wants money for their house, guess what you're going to pay for their house with? Money, right? So you want to ask, like, you'll never get a free house from somebody. You'll never get a subject to from somebody unless you actually ask them to tell you what they want to have happen. So you'll get things like, you know what? I just need this to go away. I don't want it to affect my credit score, and I just want to go. You can have the house. You will get that answer. Okay. You will get like, you know what? If I could just get 10 grand to get onto my next location, I'd be good with that. You'll get that type of stuff. Or you'll get, I want full price for my house. I want to sell it. But you'll never get those other answers if you're always going in assuming that's what they want. Okay. Yep. Remember, they are not in your shoes. They got something else going on that's a bigger issue on their side. Selling their house through traditional means and getting top dollar is not number one on their priority list at the moment. That's why they called your little postcard in the first place. Okay. So let them answer. Then great. So if I or anyone else could make that happen, would this be a later or a sooner thing? So now you're asking for the urgency. How soon do they want this to happen? Right? So you want to hear an answer like yesterday, right away, this month, by the end of the month. You want to hear those types of answers. And then that point, that's when it's worthy of me to actually set the appointment and go out and meet with them. So that they've been cooperative. They talked to me the whole time. They answered all my questions and they said, I need this to happen now. I want you to buy it. Got it. Okay. And then the last thing is just a transition agreement. And I think this is probably maybe the most powerful tool that I could share with everybody. And a transition agreement is what you do at the beginning and the end of every interaction you have with the seller. Okay, in the beginning and the end. So on our very first one, we set the stage, and that pretty much was a transition agreement. And what you're saying is, this is what's going to happen next, this is what's going to happen next, and these are the two possible outcomes. You get to choose. Either way is 100% okay with me. And this is really key because most sellers, most people really are uncomfortable using the word no. So you need to create this nice, free, open space and give them the comfort, the ability to say no. That way, when you get a yes, you'll know it's a true yes. Mm-hmm. So the transition agreement at the end, so that's how it kind of started. Great, I'm glad you called, and most people that call me want to know, how this all works, what they can get for their house. Do you have those same types of questions? Perfect, great. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and then when we're all done, I'll lay out a couple options for you, and you get to choose. Is that okay? Perfect. So I kind of said, this is what's going to happen next here, and you'll have two options. So the last one, the transition agreement, is great. Sounds good. I think I got everything I need. I'm going to go ahead and do some confirmation with the current market conditions, because after all, the market will have more to say than I would. But I would love to come over, take a look at the house. You show me around and, kind of point out the things that you think are valuable about the house. But what I want to do is, if at any point, I just want to be straight with you, at any point that I don't think this is going to be a good fit, I'm going to let you know. Is that fair? And let them say yes. Great. And all I ask in return is that if at any point this doesn't feel like it's a good fit for you, will you let me know? Yes. So that way they can say either way, you give them that comfortable space.
Information.
Right? Yep. Great. So I can come over later tonight or first thing in the morning. Which time works best for you? And that's kind of how we set that whole appointment up.
Yeah.
So you've set the stage for a really good interaction with the seller.
That's phenomenal. I mean, that playbook is so valuable for everybody. So hopefully people were taking notes quickly and can rewatch this. We'll make sure, obviously, to post this on our YouTube channel. But Matt, that was phenomenal. I mean, one thing that I know you've mentioned before is that it's really easy for people to go for the close too early, like to really take action too swiftly on that. Do they just skip like the second half of that whole 9-step process, or where do people kind of trip up, when you see that?
Yeah. It goes back to, this is a relationship that you're building, right? And you're building this relationship with someone that doesn't know you, probably doesn't trust you yet. And people do business with the people that they want to work with, the people that they like, the people that they trust, the people that they believe to be competent. They have confidence in their competence. Those are the things that they're looking for. And if you go for the close before any of those things are established, it's a coin toss whether you're going to get that deal or not. You're just going to you're going to be playing in that low-hanging fruit section where that motivation has to far exceed the need for you to build that relationship.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this has been phenomenal, Matt. I mean, I don't want to run too far over on you. I really, really appreciate your time today.
Oh my God, it's already an hour.
I know. I was going to say this. I looked up this flew by. So this was awesome. For sure one of our best ones yet. Like love going through and seeing you, lay out those 9 steps. I mean, I think people in the comments are saying, "Hey, you're the real deal." So I appreciate you coming on.
I wish I could see the comments. I can't see anything if you guys are
writing. Oh no, I pulled. I had this one popping up when you.
I was going to say I'm not being rude and ignoring anybody.
Yeah. Either way, really, really appreciate you coming on here, Matt. I mean, can you kind of tell our audience more on how to get involved with you, like the best way to get in touch, following up with you?
Sure. Well, I've been kicked off of Instagram twice this year, and I'm not sure why. So you can't find me on Instagram.
Probably not go there. Yeah.
Yeah. They won't tell me. They say I violated their policy and terms, but then they won't give me. They said, here's a link to our policy and terms. Read it and figure it out. And I was like, yeah, fun. Okay, good. All right, so I'm off there. But I have had the second longest running real estate investing podcast on iTunes, the Epic Real Estate Investing Show. Nice. Jason Hartman got me beat by about a year. And then we've got the YouTube channel here. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can go over to just type in epicrei.tv into your browser. That'll take you right to the homepage. Click the subscribe button. We release cool stuff there each and every week. And those are probably the 2 best ways to get in touch with us.
Awesome. Well, Matt, again, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this kind of special live edition. But to everyone watching, again, this is Matt Camp with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.
All right, thanks, Matt. Appreciate you, and I appreciate all of you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here.